wait another minute, no, I won't. I'm a man on a mission. I'm a man on a mission. I don't need no permission. I'm a man on a mission. Take it up now, take it up. I ain't waiting and wishing. Take it up now, take it up. I got that ambition. Take it up now, take it up. I'm a man. Wait another minute, no, I won't. I won't wait another minute, no, I won't. I won't wait another minute, no, I won't. Yeah. I won't wait another minute, no, I won't. I'm a man on a mission. I'm a man on a mission. I don't need no permission. I'm a man on a mission. Take it up now, take it up. I ain't waiting and wishing. Take it up now, take it up. I got that ambition. Take it up now, take it up. I'm a man on a mission. Take it up now, take it up. Take it up now, take it up. Take it up now, take it up. I'm a man on a mission. Take it up now, take it up. Take it up now, take it up. Take it up now, take it up. I'm a man on a mission.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on Crocodiles in Sri Lanka. This is the sixth online lecture which the Wildlife Society of St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia has conducted so far. These online webinars are done with the aim of increasing public awareness on Sri Lanka's unique flora and fauna, as we believe that awareness is vital in the path to conservation. And this webinar in particular spotlights Sri Lanka's largest reptile, who are the living dinosaurs, which have existed for the past 65 million years, virtually unchanged. This in itself is amazing. The Wildlife Society of St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia, is one of the oldest natural history societies in the country. Founded in 1884, our society has empowered great naturalists, scientists, and conservationists for more than 136 years. I would like to say that today we are extremely honored and delighted to present to you Mr. Dinal Samarasinghe. Mr. Dinal Samarasinghe, who is an old boy of St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia, and is also a former member of our Wildlife Society, is a leading wildlife biologist, conservationist, specializing in herpetology. His work spans across studies on neuron bioacoustics, variant taxonomy, human-wildlife conflict mitigation, and monitoring carnivore apex predator populations. In 2012, he initiated an extensive three-phase study assessing the human-crocodile conflict in the Nilvala River. Working closely with the local community and policymakers, he studied the background, history, and social perspective of the conflict between humans and crocodiles. The several short-term and long-term solutions which were proposed by him was implemented by the government. Mr. Samarasinghe has also led a standardized population monitoring project for the Sri Lankan leopard in 3 major national parks. This is the first ever initiative taken to better understand the Sri Lankan leopard population. In summary, Mr. Samarasinghe's areas of speciality extend to herpetology, conservation, bioacoustics, behavior and ecology, carnivore biology, taxonomy, wildlife photography, and population monitoring. We would now like to sincerely thank Jeep and Demo Sri Lanka for sponsoring this webinar. We are grateful for their generous contribution to make these online lectures possible. We would also like to thank the ICT Society of St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia, who worked tirelessly this last week to live stream this event on YouTube. If you have any questions that you wish to be answered by Mr. Samarasinghe regarding the topic, please direct them using the chat to Jonathan Bulat Sinhala, who is a co-host. If you are watching the live stream on YouTube, please send your questions through the comment section. I will now hand over to Mr. Dinal Samarasinghe.
All right. It's just to check if everybody can hear me. Is it all good? Is it all good? Yeah. Is on. Yeah. Is the audio on? Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Cool. And well, Dhruv, thank you very much for that in generous introduction. And good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for joining in today for this lecture. And so today I'll be talking about a fascinating group of animals that has recently developed a lot of interest among Sri Lankans, especially people around Colombo, because they have now started seeing crocodiles that live in and around in the waterways in these areas, and a lot of social media posts are being shared around among Sri Lankans, and this is very good. But I understand that everybody needs to get a proper understanding about these animals that we coexist with. And so the reason why we see a lot of crocodiles around Colombo recently is mainly after the post-war development that has taken place, when a lot of vegetation around these canal edges and wetlands have been cleared up, and people who have been living near these waterways have just started to notice them. But in fact, these crocodiles have been here in our water from around the Portuguese era. That is about 500 years ago. And but I hope this talk will really help out get a proper understanding and help coexist with these archaic creatures together in the future. So crocodiles have been here on Earth for almost 240 million years, and just like Drew mentioned, so they've been here unchanged. This current form and design hasn't changed for almost 100 million years, and they've managed to withstand and survive through two major extinctions, and even the latest ice age. And now they are in conflict with us humans in some parts, but still thriving in most waterways and around the globe. And so this archaic form that you see here, robust archaic form with strong jaws, oblong, long snout, sharp teeth around the top and lower jaw, and a bony armor plate on top of the body, are some of the major characteristics of a crocodile. In addition to this, there are some other superpowers that I would like to introduce to everybody, and these are their sensory abilities, enhanced sensory abilities, and some that I will touch upon one by one. All this has helped them survive throughout and become successful hunters. So the picture you see here is a crocodile with its with the posture that we call the minimum exposure posture, which uh, only its head is up out of the water, and they are able to swim like this with the rest of the body submerged and just go unnoticed uh, into the water with a ripple or two, and where prey might not even notice. So in this particular picture, what I'm trying to highlight is that even though this animal is just has his head out, it is completely aware about its surroundings. So in fact, this was taken near a riverbank adjoining a home garden, and there was a dog nearby that was barking, and this crocodile was right at the edge of the riverbank, just paying attention. So even though the head is out, like I said earlier, the nostrils are out, its eyes are out, and also its ears. So it's paying a lot of attention. And luckily for the dog, the crocodile cannot come over because it has the home garden is fenced. But yeah, so and they can just easily dip down and then disappear without even making any changes in the water. So let me talk about the vision, the eyes. So if you can look closely, they have these well-developed cat-like eyes, and these vertical slits. This vertical slit is able to, vertical pupil is able to uh, expand and contract and control the amount of light that comes in to their eyes. And also they have what you call a specialized see-through membrane, a nictitating membrane that covers the eye when a crocodile submerges into water. And one of the most unique and one of the most important characteristics of a crocodile's eye is the presence of a tapetum lucidum. Uh, in fact, it's called, for crocodiles, it's called retinal tapetum lucidum. Tapetum lucidum simply means shining carpet. So they have specialized cells behind the back of the retina uh, that help reflect whatever light that comes in, the same direction it came in from, and that helps them give a clear image at night during low light conditions. So even a bit of starlight can help crocodiles see pretty well at night, and one of the reasons why they have become successful hunters. And this uh, has been taken into advantage by researchers and sadly by hunters as well. So what you're seeing here are some hatchlings, which are giving eye shines. So these eye shines are produced when you hit a torch or a spotlight at a crocodile's eye, and this tapetum lucidum basically reflects back uh, this light back at you, and this is what helps detect them quite easily. And I use this for my surveys that I've been carrying out in some of the rivers in Sri Lanka for the past 5 years. And sense of smell is also very well developed. They have a long nasal canal and can sense carcasses a couple of kilometers away from where they are, and they travel these distances to get to these carcasses as well. And one more interesting thing about the nostril is that when these are semi-aquatic lizards, animals, so they get to the when they submerge themselves into the water, they cover their nostrils with a muscular flap so that there's little or no water coming in. And uh, this is something that you look at while on land as well before you capture crocodiles. It's a way of assessing behavior. Is the rate is their breathing rate. So if an animal is agitated or uncomfortable, and one easy way to judge its temperament is by looking at the rate of opening and closing of this muscular flap. All right, and their hearing is also well developed. The hearing capabilities for airborne sources and underwater sources are very well developed. And what you're seeing here is another muscular flap that protects the eardrum when they go underwater. And if one's daring, you can use a key to lift the flap up and take a look at the eardrum. Uh, in any case, and also they're hearing they are quite responsive towards distress calls of animals. So a squeak of a mouse, a yelping dog, um, any or even a baby crying in this instance. So in Sri Lanka, they have some of the hunters, in fact, um, took advantage of this. Local hunters, they developed a trapping method called pongo to kill crocodiles. And what they did was they would uh, tie a couple of hooks onto a live dog and put it on a floating platform and uh, let it float on a water source and anchored nearby. And that will the yelping dog would attract the crocodile and eventually get caught to the hooks if when it tries to eat the dog. And quite uh, interestingly, the British also knew this method, and they used not a dog, but they went to the extent of hiring a local baby from the village and tie the baby on a stump nearby and ambush the predator. So as it comes out of the water, it will be killed, and that will be its trophy. Something that has puzzled researchers the past decade, 2, 3 decades, was that how do crocodiles hunt underwater? Because uh, even in muddy, murky water, because they are unable to see uh, underwater quite clearly, especially if it's muddy and murky. And so these grebes can dive underwater, and sometimes crocodiles are known to catch them and feed on them and pinpoint the direction from where they move into. And the answer to this is well developed sensory organs on the skins and the skin. So they have what we called specialized domed pressure receptors. These little dome-shaped receptors you see on the head uh, are spread right throughout the body on crocodiles, but not on alligators. In alligators and caimans, these uh, pressure receptors are only found around the head area. So these have a good concentration of nerve endings leading into these receptors, and it makes them as sensitive for any movement of water of the surface of the water and also vibrations of the water. And they can in fact detect and pinpoint the direction of the source of these vibrations. And a recent research has also showed that they can detect vibrations in the of animals moving in the water as well, just as how lateral line works in some of the fishes and amphibians. And so this is it's like almost a sixth sense when it comes to like an extra sensory ability in the skin of an animal, and it will just be very hard for us to comprehend how much of a what sort of sensation this this all these receptors give, because in each and every individual receptor is about 10 times more sensitive than our own fingertips. So it's quite sensitive. And of course, intelligence of crocodiles is they're quite intelligent animals, and they learn quite quickly as long as the reward is something very good. It's a really very good reward, especially like food. They will learn very quickly and try to associate things uh, uh, soon. And what you're seeing here is is a crocodile balancing sticks and twigs on top of its snout to lure egrets that are looking for sticks and twigs to build a build nests during the nesting season. And this only happens during the nesting season, and it's been observed among mugger crocodiles and also alligators. And it's a fascinating observation, uh, and they're also able to count up to five. Uh, uh, quite intelligent animals. These are animals we are dealing with, and also the ability to survive in the ocean, and also you may have heard about crocodiles coming into the beach and seeing them off the coast of Marissa or even Gorface, and this is simply because they have very well developed salt glands. And this is the crocodile's tongue, and they have all crocodiles, except for alligators and caimans, all crocodilians, like the Nile crocodile, mugger, saltwater crocodile, New Guinean crocodile, all of them have well-developed salt glands. But it's it's the saltwater crocodile and the American crocodile that are very well known to venture out in the ocean and travel long distance in hypersaline waters. The Nile crocodile can also venture out in the ocean, but they're not known for long distance travel in the ocean. And this is the distribution of saltwater crocodiles throughout its range. So you can see they're distributed right from around Sri Lanka right up to Australia, and definitely the salt glands have really help them achieve this. So what happens is when they're in hypersaline water, whenever there is excess salt in the body, they're able to excrete uh, high salt concentration as pebbles from their tongues. So in Sri Lanka, we have two species of crocodiles, the mugger crocodile and the saltwater crocodile, or Halakimbula or Gatakimbula. And they are spread right throughout Sri Lanka. And yeah, so in India, uh, the mugger crocodile is found in a very small range, unlike the saltwater crocodile. So they're they're currently found in a few countries and have gone extinct in Bhutan, possibly extinct in Bangladesh, and there are yet no proper records of them in Myanmar. In Sri Lanka, however, they're quite very well distributed in the dry and intermediate zone, and they're fairly social. You see about 50 crocodiles or so in one tank together. Unlike saltwater crocodiles, which are quite territorial, and they found in rivulets of major lagoons in some big rivers in the dry zone, and also they're mainly found in these landlocked tanks as you see here right now, and they prefer these sort of tanks, and they thrive in these waterways. They often come into contact with humans and conflict results, but they're only responsible for about 35 to 40% of attacks in Sri Lanka. And some of the key hotspots, Anuradhapura, Eastern Province area, and also Katharagama areas. So just like even saltwater crocodile, mugger crocodile also feeds mostly on small fish, frogs, and crustaceans, and that's what the diet is composed of mostly. But large animals with the capabilities, they are also able to bring down larger prey. And if there are animals using the same area for water, and they would sometimes talk, and even it's been observed to sometimes build wallows and wait till animals come in and take them down. One unique characteristic behavior of mugger crocodiles is similar to we see this in Niles and some other crocodiles, is that they dig burrows. And this is to withstand and go through and avoid harsh climatic conditions, such as winter in some parts of India and peak dry seasons as well. So in Sri Lanka, it's known that these burrows maintain a temperature of about 19 degrees right throughout the harsh dry season. So, of course, the dry zone of the country goes to a harsh 6-month dry season, and mother crocodiles use this as a strategy to avoid this heat and when the waterways are dried up. And but sometimes they come out at night, unlike what we see with estivating animals, hibernating animals. Uh, they will come out at night sometimes, go about hunting and come back into the burrows before the day starts. And another strategy muggers use to avoid to move into to avoid to survive the dry season is to go from a drying up water hole into a new permanent water source in the dry season. So they often walk sometimes 5-6 kilometers away from the water source to get to a new permanent water source, and sometimes we come across human habitations, and incidents like this will arise. It's also important to know that muggers will also walk such distances and move from one waterway to the other during the monsoon period as well. And you come across these kind of incidents during that time as well. So females will, the way the mugger crocodile nest is also interesting. This is also with other crocodiles, some other crocodiles as well, where they dig a hole and lay the eggs, and the female will build her own burrow nearby and guard the eggs. So this happens during the peak dry season, and once the hatchlings are out, she will take them and into the water, to nearby water source, and stay with them for a couple of weeks, and then they disperse. On the other hand, saltwater crocodiles are only found along coastal areas of Sri Lanka. They are found in the major tidal rivers in the islands, such as Ambalantota, Valavi River, Nevala, Polotamodra, Canny River, Bentota are some of the major rivers that you found in. Also large lagoons and bays like Batikalo and Trincomalee, and also in Bolgoda as well. And these are some of the typical habitats that you find them in, like very good mangrove habitats, and sometimes they venture out into rivulets and end up behind human settlements. And even areas like this is in Mathura, where just near the roadside. And also they can travel further upstream and end up in areas with torrential waters as well. And in Sri Lanka, authorities are responsible for the majority of the attacks in the island, and the key hotspots are Mathura, Ambalantota, and the east coast. And many of these attacks, sometimes they end up as fatalities. So saltwater crocodiles nest differently to that of muggers. They build a nest. So they collect vegetation around the habitat and lay the eggs inside, and they make a mound that's about 0.5 to 1 meter high. And the female will build a wallow around the nest and guard the eggs, and this will take the shape of a moat or simply a wallow next to the nest. And this will help keep maintain a body temperature, and also maintain proper humidity of the nest until the eggs are hatched in 3 months. And they, similar to the mugger, they will also take the hatchlings and release them into a nearby waterway, and they disperse later. So this was a saltwater crocodile that we came across from Kalpiti. I think this was in Gorface, and this it has been in the ocean for almost 2 months or so, and the presence of barnacles is an indication, like you see on these scales here, it's an indication that it's been in the ocean for a quite long time. So, so they're probably traveling from one river to another, and use this special capability to expand the range. And one of the most important things I think all Sri Lankans should remember and understand is how to differentiate these two species we find in Sri Lanka. And it's quite simple, but I will go into detail and into pretty much all the characters just to give a good background understanding, so everybody has an idea. And with a lot of people now being interested in wildlife photography and wildlife in general, I think it should be very important that everybody understands these differences. And yeah, so all you have to do is, one of the easiest ways is just, because most of the time you just see the head of a crocodile, yeah, right? So just you pay attention to these two parts of the head. That is the snout, the area between the eyes and the nostrils, and right at the back of the head. So this is the area you have to look closely. So starting from the back of the head, the saltwater crocodile doesn't have these well-developed pair of scutes at the back of the head of a saltwater crocodile. So whereas a mugger has a well-developed pair of scutes right in the post-occipital area, is what they call the post-occipital area, and this is absent in saltwater crocodiles. So in Sinhalese, saltwater crocodiles are called Gatakimbula, and these guys are called muggers are called Halakimbula. So Gatakimbula doesn't have gata. That's just an easy way to remember. And whereas the mugger crocodile has well-developed gata, quite the opposite of their names. And the other important character, and this will help you differentiate the saltwater crocodile from every other crocodile, is this present of an internerior ridge in between the eye and the nostril. So there's no other crocodile in the world that has these well-developed ridges in front of the eye leading up to the nostrils. You have some caimans with curved up ridges, and the alligator. So, but among crocodilians, no, it's not the case. So mugger crocodiles also doesn't have a ridge such as this, but some old animals can have can develop a small ridge right in front of the eye, but that's it. And if you just go back to this image over here, and I hope everybody can now see that these characters quite clearly. So on top of the image is a saltwater crocodile, and on the bottom is a mugger crocodile. Also, the saltwater crocodile has a narrow snout. So compared to the mugger, and in fact, the mugger is the only animal that has it has the broadest snout of all crocodilians. And not to confuse with alligators. Alligators also have a much broader snout, but among crocodiles, the family Crocodilidae, the mugger has the broadest snout, and we call them brevirostrines. Muggers, Niles will all fall under that category. And whereas saltwater crocodiles has a narrow snout, and the broadest part of the snout is exactly half of the head length. That's something to remember. And this is quite easy to remember. But also one thing to keep in mind is that adult male saltwater crocodiles, as they grow beyond 13, 14 feet, can develop broader snouts too, but not as broad as a mugger. This is due to cranial ontogeny. Simply means that the how the head 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 develops with age, and something to keep in mind. Of course, if you look from the lateral aspect of a baby of any crocodile of saltwater crocodile, if you draw a virtual line in between the nostril and the eyes, uh, you will see a empty space in between the snout and the virtual line, and so there's a concave shape of the snout. Whereas in a mugger, uh, there's less space, and the line nearly touches the nostrils. And another fact to keep in mind is that the American crocodile is the only animal that has a concave shape. Sorry, convex shape of the snout, where it's like the small hump in front of the head. The snout basically there's a small slight hump on the front of the head and then extends further up. If you see any images on the internet, you can easily recognize an American crocodile. And also, if you draw a virtual line from the lateral aspect of a crocodile, a saltwater crocodile, there won't be any well-developed scutes that extends, get close to that line or extends beyond that line. Whereas in a mugger crocodile, if you draw an axilla to groin or shoulder to hip virtual line, there will be these well-developed scutes scattered close to it and sometimes extend beyond it. And these are some of the key characters. In addition, you should also pay attention to the scutes of the body. So scutes are basically scales which has osteoderms or bony plates within these scales. And in saltwater crocodiles, you have 6 rows of these scutes. And if you look closely at one of these scutes, give a closer look, you see that it's relatively less developed to that of muggers, and also they're more circular and or oval shaped compared to a mugger's scutes, which are more squarish or rectangular rather. And in some young animals and old animals, you might see these scutes much more well developed, with a well developed bridge on these scutes. So those are some of the characters that I hope will help everybody identify crocodiles and tell them apart. And also one thing to remember is the general color. So saltwater crocodiles, the primary color pattern is black and yellow. So you can see here, there's black all over the body and some yellow here and there. And just take note of these black blotches on the side of the body, the lateral side of the body. And in muggers, the colors can change from grayish brown to brown and sometimes olive green, but they won't have these dark black pigments as you see in the saltwater crocodile. And some adult big saltwater crocodiles can turn uniform black. That's another character you can remember. Keep in mind. So in Sri Lanka, we do have a conflict between humans and crocodiles, and so we are only quite familiar with the conflict between humans and elephants. And human-crocodile conflict is the second most prevailing conflict in human-animal conflict in the island. And to qualify as a conflict between a human and animal, it has to satisfy these following 4 categories. So we see all these things in the human crocodile conflict. So we'll run by these little by little, and this will help identify the threats the crocodiles they face with, and also the dangers humans that live with these animals face with as well. So the most important thing is, of course, there's a lot of deaths with regard to persecution and retaliatory killings of crocodiles. So in this particular instance here, what we're seeing here is a 14-foot, 40.6 foot crocodile from Ragama was persecuted for killing a person who had gone to cut grass in that area, the wetlands, and the the villagers got together and killed this massive crocodile, and they found body parts of the person inside, and this is one of the most biggest dangers I see with for biggest threats for crocodiles is them getting entangled in fishing nets. So it's most of the time animals, hatchlings, young ones, and animals who are about 2 to 3 feet that get caught in these fishing nets, especially when these nets are laid out across the river. They get entangled and drown and die. And sometimes big animals get caught in fishing nets out in the sea as well. And there was one record last year of one of those incidences. And on top of this, there is poaching going on for crocodile meat, and we see this happen quite close to uh, festive seasons in the island. It could be any religion or any other occasion. And just one request I would like to make is just avoid any sort of bushmeat when you come across uh, uh, when in any way. And of course, human fatalities happen, and a lot of people have lost their lives and got injured and permanently disabled because of encountering a crocodile in their waterways. And of course, the economic loss for cattle herders is another problem, and there's no solution, proper solution for this aspect as of now. And I will show a clip where saltwater crocodile from Kamrupetia feeds on a buffalo from that area, and a villager from that area just sent me this video back then. And let me just play this for you all.
අම්මට හුටු
So these kind of incidents happen quite often, and yeah, so we should always look at the reasons for such attacks and how to prevent them. And yeah, so the main reason for crocodile attacks in Sri Lanka is because people that live near waterways with crocodiles, most of these people don't have other water sources to fulfill their daily needs. And such, just for example, like this guy here, he's washing his clothes and he bathes and brushes his teeth in this area. And although there's a crocodile right across on the other side of the bank, and so this is a big risk, and he doesn't mind, and he says he doesn't have any other options. There's no water in his house, no government supplied water, and there's no other alternative water source for him, and he has to come to the river for this purpose. And likewise, there are people all around the island in most places where they coexist with uh, crocodiles and use the water sources for various purposes. And they're quite vulnerable if there's no proper protection given onto them. And occupational uh, uh, needs are also one of the areas where these people can get in trouble with. For example, this man here collects an edible fern that grows along the river banks of the south, and so he's quite vulnerable towards crocodile attacks too. And there are people in Colombo now we have seen where they get into waterways to collect grass to feed cattle, and and then you also have people cleaning the canal banks and canals while being on floating rafts in the Colombo wetlands. So these are things to they're quite vulnerable to any crocodile attacks, especially if there are nesting females nearby.
Hi, Dinar. I
And
think there is a problem with the sharing screen. Do you mind if you could stop sharing and start
okay,
sharing again?
sure, sure. How is it now?
Okay, now perfect. Now perfect. Now can see. Sorry about that.
All right, no problem. Right, okay. And of course, people who are engaged in the brick industry, because they sometimes will have to use sediments on the river edge to collect clay, and unsafe fishing practices. So this particular incident happened in Batticaloa, and in the Batticaloa Lagoon, they have this interesting fishing practice where people set up these platforms on the edge of the lagoon, uh, uh, like every 10 to 20 meters away from each other along the bank, and a person when they do it, they go about the fishing practices at night. So they hang a lamp on this hook over here, and they have to wade through the water and get onto the platform, carry out the fishing practices. So this person, one of the fishermen, had gone in for some fishing early in the morning, and eventually got caught to a saltwater crocodile, and it was quite unfortunate. And I was in the area when this happened, and I immediately went to the area the very next day to take a look. It was quite a sad situation, and yeah, and there are some also other uh, interesting aspects of coexistence, but also with a little bit of danger involved as well in here. So the picture on the top left is a couple of fishermen that wade through a lagoon in the east coast that's full of manga crocodiles, and so they are wading through the water to go and throw their cast nets to catch fish. And quite interestingly, they go to the areas where they see crocodiles floating around, knowing that there are fish in there. And the person behind has been attacked by the crocodiles in this lagoon about three to four times. And it has always been minor injuries to his legs and arms, and nothing detrimental. And he doesn't mind. He says the crocodile comes to feed the fish when they throw the nets. This is something. It's an interesting aspect, and they just go to the hospital, get the treat the wound, and come back and carry out on their practices. And And as long as they don't disturb the water, and they know this, and we were discussing about this, and you know, they know that they shouldn't be splashing around and disturbing the water, but they just gently wade through the water to get to the spots and carry out the fishing practices. And in this case over here in the bottom right is a man throwing his cast nets, and there's a crocodile just on the opposite bank, on the bank on my side, and saw another mugger crocodile. So it doesn't they don't really mind, and but it just takes anything can trigger a predatory instinct of a crocodile, even if it's a mugger that tolerates disturbances and that's less territorial. So it's just an accident waiting to happen, and everybody should keep in mind of this problem. So I will now touch upon some of the ways of preventing crocodile attacks and some of the solutions recommendations that can be implemented to counter the conflict. And we'll give some guidelines at the end on how to protect yourselves from crocodiles and also enjoy their presence and in their waterways. So one of the best solutions out here is just to give an alternative water source. So easiest thing to do is of course give government supplied water, and this has been observed into the houses. Do not venture out into the Mathura River at all. And you see this in other places in Sri Lanka as well. And even if government supplied water cannot be given, they can build a water tank nearby and use that, or pump water from the river and fill their fill the tanks in each households as well. And traditionally, people have looked at using various um, uh, protection methods, and one of the oldest methods people have used is to build a fence around their the bathing spots. And as you can see, the type 1 CE you see here is one of these traditional methods of protecting themselves from the conflict. So this is not effective because there are incidents that have been recorded in the 1930s and 40s where people have been attacked by crocodiles in these small pens. And there's one attack that happened in 2012 in a similar pen for people to come and bathe. The type 2 CE you see here is built for small communities in a village, and it's also they use wooden stakes. It's just not strong enough to keep a big crocodile away from them. The best solution is of course this government built type 3 exclusion enclosures. They use galvanized pipes and wire mesh, and these have been very effective in such conflict hotspots. And the only problem is tidal rivers will go through annual flooding from time to time, and the maintenance is a problem, and these things don't last long. They can only survive in tidal rivers for about 5-6 years, and then you have to put a new one up. And yeah, another way, of course, is to put up signboards to make people aware and encourage people to use protected bathing spots. And these are now being built, erected in many such waterways. Putting up fences along waterways where crocodiles exist is also crucial, and that will avoid big crocodiles coming into your garden, and also in Colombo, we see these sort of fences being built up. There are some waterways in like walking paths in Colombo that will require fences. Something to note here is that this particular type of fence is not effective for crocodiles because they can easily climb over such a fence like this. And there's a specific design that will prevent crocodiles from climbing over. That is, if you have a extra fence line on top of this that is bent towards the water source, and that will disrupt their center of gravity, and that will avoid animals climbing over. So this must be kept in mind when building, when putting up fences to protect people. And even though it might just ruin the beauty of such areas, I think it's important to put up fences and not risk the lives of people, and also that will, because it will come back at quite badly towards the crocodiles as well, and the people will start pressurizing the government to really capture and release them somewhere else and cause other major problems. So translocation really is not a proper mitigation measure. It should be the last resort if there is no other alternative, and translocation should be considered as the last resort. So simply because, for example, like a sauropod crocodile, they are extremely territorial, site-fiddling, and also they are able to come back to where they were caught from, and from the release site. So one of the best examples is from Cape York in Queensland of Australia. As you can see on this map over here, there was this big crocodile that was caught from Winlock River and transferred over land via helicopter and released on the opposite side. Within 2 months, this animal traveled a total of 400 kilometers across the peninsula and came back to its spot here. So what are we talking? In Sri Lanka, if you capture a crocodile from Colombo and release it into Yala, it will take about 270. It's about 270 kilometers, 300 kilometers along the coast, and that's nothing if the proper ocean currents and surface currents are available for them. And also, this creates a false picture, false sense of safety for people living along these areas. So it's important that people. So, for example, if you catch a big crocodile and release it somewhere else, people might think this water source is not free of crocodiles. But if you capture a crocodile, a big boss crocodile, and release it somewhere else, it'll create a vacant area, and that might invite a new crocodile or help expand an already territorial male into this new area, and might cause even further problems if the animal is much more aggressive than the one caught before. We saw this in Volgoda, where the fishermen and the locals around here complained about a crocodile that was jumping onto kites that were flying over the waterway, and they thought it would cause problems in the future, and they got the department to catch the animal and take it over to Bundala. But within a month or so, these boats started to get attacked by a crocodile, and it just went on to about 8 months or so, and people, the fishermen, were quite worried. But the interesting thing here is that this animal didn't attack the people, but didn't tolerate boats or anything that's floating around in its area. And so this simply means that it was just showing territorial display. And so didn't tolerate anything in its waterway. So just taken, maybe may have expanded its own territory or enter this new vacant area and establish territory in this waterway. So the key thing, of course, is creating awareness and to people, and is very glad that college has done this, initiated this program with wildlife awareness for the general public, and I hope this talk will make be very useful for everybody. So in one of those pictures here, I go. One of the things that I did in some of the study sites that I've been carrying out my surveys is that I would go from house to house, spend about 5-10 minutes with each household, and just discuss uh, uh, about crocodiles. I would ask them questions about the level of coexistence, and also give some key pointers and knowledge about the biology, physiology, and behavioral aspects. These people will have to keep in mind when they're coexisting with such a large carnivore. And these are some of the points I would like to highlight to everybody that's listening to this talk here. So we might come across crocodiles at some point, and we walk along waterways, and and we might there's always a chance of encountering a crocodile, and if we do, just have to manage these safety aspects and follow these steps to be safe and be not to get ourselves into trouble with crocodiles. So I will explain one by one little. As I think we have fast time, but it doesn't matter. I will explain one by one because it's very important. So it's important to stay at least 15 feet or 15 feet away from a waterway, because a crocodile can lunge out of the water using their powerful tail and capture prey, and they're quite quick on land as well. Sometimes they can outrun persons, humans on land. So it's always safe to stay away from the water's edge, because you might not see it, the crocodile. They might just look like some floating twigs or sticks, and for the untrained eye. Even for the trained eye, it's so elusive. It's just very tough to see them. And do not feed crocodiles at all. Like, do not feed any predator, any animal, even elephants, or even it will cause problems. And keep dogs away and other pets away from the water's edge. When you know that there are crocodiles, I've seen a video that was circulating around, and the dog was in the water and the person just didn't do anything, and the crocodile just dragged it away. We don't want anything like that to happen to pets. And of course, never get close to or interfere with a crocodile or any predator, for that instance, that is feeding or attempting to hunt or stalking. And this applies to leopards as well in national parks. If you have a leopard that is with a kill on the side of the road, close to the road, just avoid it. Just avoid. Stay at a good distance, because this animal might, get agitated and start snarling and attempt to pounce at a vehicle, and something won't happen. And avoid bathing in water sources with known crocodile presence. If there is, I shouldn't give this warning, but anyway, if there's anyone who's listening from the military or who are engaged in field surveys and stuff, if you have to get into the water, one of the best ways to do is just wade through the water without creating much disturbance. And that's just one way to no splashing and nothing, just gently wade through. That should somewhat keep an animal away, and just avoid waters with crocodiles. And to elaborate on the fourth point here, that is to not get close to any animal predator that is feeding or stalking. I will play this video. This is an incident that happened to me when I was heading off to my one of the units to carry out my spotlight surveys. So this is in the Nilbala River, where there are two large boss crocs living here side by side, adjoining territories. So one is 17 feet and the other one is 18 feet. So the one that comes first is a smaller one. And these two large boss crocs were stalking macaques on the edge of the water. And I've never seen these guys together. I've always come across these crocodiles every time I come on my surveys, and I've never had a problem with them. I've had them at arm's length near my boat and never had an issue. They just tolerate boats. But in this particular instance, they were at the opposite side of the edge, water's edge, and I parked my boat here to observe them. But these guys just came right at my boat, and I'll just show what happened and how we evaded them.
මේ පිටිපස්සෙන් ඒ හොඳ යටින් ගියා එකේ ඉස්සරහට කොපල් ඉස්සරහට කොට බලාගෙන වටේ
Yeah. So that was a close call. So once I got up from the low-lying boat I was in, my survey boat, the animal just dipped down and went onto the boat, and the boat actually shook a bit, and then the 18-footer, the big box came at us, and we moved out from there, and then went about to carry on the survey. And if you are camping near a water source, I've seen so a lot of people go on camping in national parks, and so just keep it in mind to leave at least 40, stay away from the water's edge at least 40 meters away instead of camp, and also dispose scraps away from the campsite appropriately. Maybe dig a hole and just get rid of them, and do not use the same spot repeatedly when you're fetching water, or limit your time near the water's edge, and yeah, and also avoid places where animals frequently come and drink water from, and because this can crocodiles may tend to stay around these areas to catch them. And, yeah, so these are some of the key points to remember. And of course, if you're on a boat, avoid dangling your feet and keeping your hands out of the water, and just avoid the breeding season of crocodiles, because you might have aggressive females get aggressive during the nesting season, and they might jump off from they might become very aggressive if they're on a riverbank and you're on a boat. And also, best is to avoid small boats such as kayaks in areas, especially when there are saltwater crocodiles around. In Australia, there have been attacks on people on kayaks, so it's just something to keep in mind. And thank you very much for tuning in for this lecture. And I would like to thank the College Wildlife Society and Jonathan for his dedication to make this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dina, for that awesome lecture. So we can now move on to the questions. So we got quite a few, so I'll try and ask as many as we could possibly do. So the first question is how do you identify male from female crocodiles, and do crocodiles show sexual dimorphism?
Uh, Crocodiles show sexual dimorphism, but sadly, it is not. It is just based on size. You can't
Okay.
visibly tell them apart. There are no morphological differences directly, but any animal that is above 10, 11 feet, saltwater crocodiles or mother crocodiles, they are males, right? Because females don't grow beyond 8 or 9 feet. And
Okay.
yeah, so but you can't just tell the difference between a male and a female when they are smaller, when they are in that age. But if you look closely at the cranial developments of some females, they may be quite prominent in older females. For example, yeah, so yeah, that's something. Yeah, 70, 80-year-olds will have like well-developed cranial features. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So then the next question is, are crocodiles known to hunt from land, or do they solely hunt in water? Have there been any records? Have
Uh,
you ever observed behavior like that?
well, so hunting on land w- along riverbanks, yes, right.
Okay.
And what sometimes crocodiles do is they will even saltwater crocodiles will venture out at night and go about hunting frogs and other crustaceans on paddy fields and stuff, right? But they're not built for taking down prey on land. But like I said earlier, they can use the powerful tails. And also, if they are on the edge of the water, this happened in Ambalanthota when this lady was bathing on the side of the side of the riverbank. The crocodile was apparently on land and has run through the riverbank, grabbed the lady, and jumped onto the water. So incidents like that has happened, taken place. Uh, but yes, animals can lunge out of the water and grab an unsuspecting prey from the land up to about 20 meters, or about 10 meters or so, 5 meters or so, and then drag them back into the water. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Thank you. So the next question is, I think early on in the lecture you said that saltwater crocodiles, swim and they are out at sea for months. So we got a question. Does that mean that they also rest at sea? Do they have to come onto land to rest?
Yeah, so what happens is saltwater crocodiles, they venture out in the ocean. They use ocean currents to travel from one water source to the other, right? And this has been observed in around Australia, and where they use ocean currents. So during the monsoon periods in Sri Lanka, when the currents form, that's when they get onto these currents and travel. So when the currents get disrupted uh, with the weather, they will come towards the beach and spend a bit of time out there, and then get back into the ocean and get onto a current, and they go wherever the current takes them. Yeah, this is why you can sometimes come across them in like Colombo beaches and Mount Lavinia, and people get quite worried about this. Yeah.
Right.
If you do come across a crocodile like that, best thing is just avoid it. Give it a couple of days, it'll go back to the ocean, and yeah, yeah.
So while we're on the topic of crocodiles at sea, we got one question. How far into the Pacific does the historic range of the saltwater crocodile go? Like how far into the Pacific? Is there any studies or anything that? Yeah.
Yeah, historical range reaches up right up to some of the oceanic islands.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's how far they actually go into, and probably use the current patterns, ocean current patterns in that whole Pacific region. So we
Okay.
definitely know that the animals have traveled, established new territories from Australia, heading up to the East Timor, area, and also vice versa.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, on the saltwater crocodile, I think it was P.E.P. Deraniagala who recorded a saltwater crocodile from Katugastota in the Mahavali River. So are such sightings a anomaly, or do you actually find them coming inland as well? Are there populations found interior of Sri Lanka?
Yes, so there are. So this is the Ringara's record of this salty carcass found 163 kilometers downstream from the Mahabali is an odd record, but
Okay.
yes, if they can travel further upstream, and in Sri Lanka there are populations living further upstream. So salinity is not a requirement for them. If there is proper breeding nesting habitat, if there's sufficient prey, fish and frogs and other terrapins, and occasionally there are larger prey or humans coming into the edge of the water, uh, they would call it home. But the key thing here is, of course, the temperature of the water and ambient temperature. But yeah, that's something. Yeah,
Right.
and
Thank
therefore,
you. Right. So the next question is, would you say that Sri Lanka is a stronghold for the mugger crocodile? If so, how has that come about despite the human population density here?
definitely. Yeah. So if you compare with this with India, so India now, some of my colleagues have started to find some new strongholds within India itself, and in Sri Lankan context, our ancient irrigation tanks have been the key spots where uh, muggers have established themselves, and so this provides safe haven, safe refuge for these mugger crocodiles, and this is uh, this is what keeps them and surviving, and also the ability to tolerate uh, disturbances in such waterways. Human incursions and other animals that come into the water has somewhat helped people coexist with these mugger crocodiles. But there are incidents that happen in these tanks where people go to bathe, and unfortunate events like children being taken down by crocodiles. And again, this is why is what people should pay attention a little bit onto this. But I think with increasing human footprint in the dry zone, and might come into the conflict in the future, and also majority of the crocodile population, mugger crocodile population in the island is also found within national parks, protected
Okay.
areas. So there is no minimal interference for human and crocodile interactions. So that's something to remember as well. Whereas saltwater crocodiles, their range is outside protected areas and amongst human peri-urban and urban settings and village settings. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Thank you, Rina. The next question is, has the number of crocodile attacks reduced over the years? If so, what is the reason?
Looking back at the frequency of records that has happened during the Regula's times and now, there's certainly increase in reporting, and that doesn't necessarily mean there's an increase in attacks, right? But there are so many attacks that go unreported, and every time I go to a study site, and I always come across new old attacks and attacks that have happened, and people just don't record them and just ignore them. And it's just some of these sensationalized stories that get media attention and these popular rivers that get attention. Yeah, a lot.
Right.
Mm.
So, at what size would a crocodile be
So,
a threat to
but
humans?
with
Sorry.
right. So yeah, so animals that grow beyond so threat to humans. I would categorize threats as fatal and animals that can cause injuries, right? So even animal about 2 feet can cause a significant wound on a limb of a human, and animals right up to about 5 feet can cause severe damage to a limb. But animal. So there was a study done by one of my colleagues that found out that animals above 6-7 feet are more prone to pounce on humans, and also yeah, so animals above that age, above that length, are the ones who will attack, will tend to attack humans. Yeah, it also depends on the species. Yeah.
Okay. So then we'll move. We have time for one more question. So the last question is: are there areas where the mugger crocodile and saltwater crocodile, sort of their distributions overlap? And in these areas, if there are such areas, do the two species interbreed? Have there been any records of hybrid?
So there are currently no records of hybrids, but speculation about it in some of the literature, especially the old literature. I doubt if there are any hybridization going on, and I hope not, right? And because we don't know what sort of creature would be developed from that, especially with saltwater crocodiles in the instance. To answer the first question, yes, there are some areas where saltwater crocodiles and mugger crocodiles coexist in some parts of the east coast and one southern river. And there are studies ongoing, and there's some interesting ecological outcomes that I hope to release out once the studies are completed. Yeah, and so I have not come across any interspecific aggression between these two species, but and in one of the southern rivers, what I came across is that these animals, the presence of muggers seems to have caused come after some human interventions that has happened in these areas. So it might not be natural, and in this particular instance, and but in the East Coast there are some areas where one or two areas where salties and muggers exist. These are some of the small rivers that you find them. You find this happening further upstream in such areas. Yeah.
So thank you, Dina, for that awesome lecture. So we come to the end of yet another very successful and knowledge-filled webinar. We cordially thank Dinal Samarasinghe for spending his valuable time to impart his vast knowledge and enlighten us on the crocodiles in Sri Lanka. We are humbled and extremely honored to have had him speak to us today. I hope that everyone, joining gain much knowledge from Dinal's awesome lecture. I would also like to thank DEMO and Jeep Sri Lanka for sponsoring this webinar. We are extremely grateful for their continuous support and generous contribution towards our webinars. We could not have done it without them. We would also like to thank the ICT Society who have worked tirelessly this last week to live stream this event on YouTube. They played a vital role in the success of today's webinar. Last but not least, I would like to thank the audience for participating in this event. We hope that you enjoyed today's session and would join us for the future webinars. Stay safe and have an amazing week. Thank you.